I see the heat's breaking. Clouds are rolling in from the prairie. Gonna be a cloudburst soon. Restoring balance to nature. Ah, I love the great outdoors. Things achieve balance. Some days it's hot as blazes, buzzards circling. Waiting for me to die, well, I ain't gonna die. The rain's coming. Oh, hello, Greenhorn. Good to see you back. You know, the last time we talked, I didn't like you much. You know why that is, right? Because I don't cotton to people who feed their cats kibble. I hate the taste of that word in my mouth. But you know that, right? Because we talked about it. And I feel like we came to an understanding, did we not? And maybe, Greenhorn, just maybe, that's why you're standing here today in front of all of nature, all of the outdoors, and in my territory, to talk about what is the next step. Well, I'll tell you. Wet food. Meat. That is what our cats should be eating. So the next step in our little lesson plan is wet food. So sit down, because Greenhorn, you don't want to know what's underneath this poncho and this holster. The quickest draw this side of the Mississippi. Now sit down and learn something. What is up, my intrepid cat mojo tears? It is your ever-loving cat daddy at your service, Jackson Galaxy. Let's get right into it, shall we? Last time, we talked all about dry food, kibble, the food, the bad and the ugly. If you haven't checked out that video yet, maybe you want to go over there, right over my head here, and check out that one. Come on back and see me again sometime, stranger. In the meantime, if you did watch that, well, then let's get moving forward, shall we? So the last time I was talking about dry food, and let me give you just a quickity-quick recap. Why is dry food, kibble, not good for your cats? Well, number one, we take meat and we fire it 4 or 5 different times, put it through extruders and mixers and little shape makers and spray it with meat flavored stuff because it doesn't smell like meat anymore, and we turn it into a nugget. Carbs are through the roof, and cats can't eat that much in the way of carbs. Their digestive system is uniquely designed to eat what? Meat. And now we're having all that good meat taken out of the meat. Where's the meat?
Where's the beef?
Anyway, besides that, it is the dehydration part, and cats need hydration from their food. The other thing is spiking of the glycemic index, which is to say that every time a cat eats this high level of carbs and this unnatural food, their glycemic index shoots up. And that's not good for a cat's body. So that's all of these things that spell trouble for your cat if they're eating a kibble diet, right? So that catches us up to where we are today. Our next step, we take that meat, we keep the hydration in it, we keep as much of the good stuff in it as we can and still be convenient, and that would be, what? I can't hear you. That's right, wet food, canned food, whatever you want to call it. Prepared food in a can that's wet. That lays it out for you just perfectly. But it really is so much better for your cats than dry food, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why. Wet food, one small step for cats, one giant leap for bio-appropriate feline nutrition. Cats are obligate carnivores. When they go to hunt and catch and kill and eat, they are getting what? Mouse, bird, lizard, all of those beings are made up of at least 65 to 75% water. Another part of that natural raw cat diet, that's also what we call the Catkins diet. That is really high in meat protein, tissue and fat, and even bone and everything that's part of the prey. That's protein, and low in carbohydrates. Another thing that I really like about wet food is the fact that there's so much variety. Anyone who has been walking up and down the aisles at a pet store or browsing online, you know how many brands and how many flavors and how many textures and how much gravy or no gravy or pate or little chunky things or, you know, fish or fowl, whatever. Cats again, and everybody else for that matter, thrives on variety. And again, in nature, they would be predating on whatever came their way. And sort of at the end of variety is flavor.
I am in flavor country.
We do so much to kibble to get it into the shape it is and to make it shelf stable and everything. It smells nothing like meat anymore. And of course, cats being hunters are attracted to the smell of meat. If cats are eating their natural bio-appropriate diet, we can start to eliminate some of the things that we're seeing when it's unnatural. For instance, we switch to a wet food diet. Your cats will naturally actually start losing weight, and they will retain their muscle mass but lose that bloat. Again, I've asked this before, how many obese cats have you seen out in nature? Probably none, or very few, unless they're being fed by 6 neighbors. Another thing, and I can tell you this by personal experience, been in the trenches for many years, I have seen cats reverse their diabetes without insulin or decreasing the need for insulin by switching to the Catkins diet, to that wet diet away from dry. If we give cats what they are uniquely designed to eat, the rest of it starts at least to take care of itself. Wet food is a start. It's absolutely right square in the middle. It's not the ultimate best thing, and it's not the ultimate worst thing at all. It's right square in the middle. Now let's talk about the potential downsides. Why is wet food more in the middle? Wet food, of course, doesn't have remotely the kind of high heat exposure that dry does, basically denaturing the meat. So we don't see that, but at the end of the process, when they're sealing up the cans, yep, we expose to high heat. So we've got heat exposure. The second thing is byproducts. A byproduct is the part of an animal not normally eaten. Now, that could mean something like organs like spleens. It can mean in fowl anything from feet to beaks. There's a school of thought, of course, that says that it's okay to eat the byproducts as long as the rest of the meat, the rest of the animal is in there. Because if we think about, again, what our cats would eat, whatever they do eat, they're gonna eat the whole thing. So byproducts by themselves, you know, not the best thing to have in a food, but again, it really varies from food to food how much byproduct is in there. So labeling confusion. This is a big deal, and I think whether it's wet food or dry food, a lot of manufacturers, most manufacturers will do what they can to manipulate things so that they look the way you want them to look. A good example is this. If you look at the protein content of a whole piece of meat and compare it to the protein in a bunch of dry food, the dry food actually is going to look like it comes out on top. And why is that? Because we're dehydrating that food. So then it becomes more dense from a protein standpoint. So you'll look at something in a bag of dry food and it'll say protein by dry weight or by dry volume or something like that. In labeling, you can use the term chicken dinner or chicken and rice dinner or just chicken, and each one of those has a different set of rules that need to be applied to them in terms of how much is contained in the can. And then you have to go through the entire thing to figure out what's what. Then you've got the list of ingredients and in what order they arrive on the label. And what is all that stuff at the end? You know, it's crazy how much confusion can be manufactured along with the product. I'll say this a number of times. I've got great sources in the description of this video, and each one of my sources goes into detail about these things. They've done a lot of investigative reporting. It's dense, but it's a good read. And one more thing about ingredients is that many cats, unbeknownst to us a lot of the times, have food allergies or food sensitivities. And actually chicken and beef can be the most common. Fish can be very common. And we wouldn't know because a lot of times ingredients hide within the labels of the food. Fish winds its way up into a lot of wet foods, and you gotta look for it because it's just sort of a cheap filler, so it winds up getting in there. It's not just label confusion, it's what's hiding in there and what meat sources are hiding in there that sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what it is. And at the end of the day, I would say most canned foods are not a prey animal in a can. But look at it this way, it's not just about the ingredients themselves, it's about the composition of the ingredients. So for instance, the best composition of the food would be 10% or under calories from carbohydrates, at least 40% protein, and try to stay under 50% fat content. In all honesty, it's a lot to expect from something that costs, sometimes under $1 a serving. Let's just face it. But that said, you guys, I'm gonna have a little silence surrounding me right now so I can get a little dramatic about it. Yeah, that'll do. I would much rather your cat eat the very worst wet food on the market than the very best dry food on the market. That is the truth, Ruth, the fact, Jack. If you take a look at the pluses and minuses, what I've laid out, not just in this video, but the last video as well, it makes sense. Like I said, there were the drawbacks. And with those drawbacks comes our next stop, our final frontier in the tour of the food and the bad and the ugly. Without giving too much away, I can say that the final frontier is control. You have gone from convenience that's not going to make your cat healthy to convenience that goes a lot further in terms of maintaining a healthy balance in your cat. And now the final frontier is full control. You have control over what goes into your cat, from the ingredients to the composition. The best of all worlds, sometimes it's a lot to ask, and I get it, but we'll get to that next time around. And the final thing that I want to touch on is something that I will touch on in a future video because I'm so glad you guys brought this up. How do I switch? If you don't want my cats to be on dry food, what do you want them to be on, and how do I switch? Well, now I'm starting to tell you what I think is the right food for your cats. How to switch, I'm going to do a full video on that after our third part of the series. It'll be the unofficial fourth part of the series. But in the meantime, the one thing I can tell you is you do anything when it comes to your cat's nutrition slowly, very slowly, so that we don't have explosive poops and upset tummies and all that kind of thing. It's tough to go from one thing to another, so you just do it slowly. Again, thank you guys. Without these comments, without you asking me questions like this, none of this content would exist anyway. You ask for it, and I do my best to got it for you. All right, next time, like I said, the final frontier, the last stop of the food, the bad, and the ugly. Check back next week. In the meantime, tell your friends about this, man. Everybody's cat should know what's good and bad and ugly, food and bad and ugly. You know what I'm saying. Much light, much love, much mojo. Till next time.
Meow.